All right, welcome back to another episode of Realty Resilience. I'm your host, Dave Nations, and I'm really excited about our episode today. I've got an old friend, coach of ours that we haven't talked to in a few years, but really excited to reconnect with today. Cari, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. So Cari and I coached, we did talk before this, but coached back in, I think we ended in like 2021, but I know we coached for a few years. I don't
We
even remember
did.
how many years it was, but it was for a little while. Do you recall?
I think it was at least a couple years. Yeah, a
I
year and
say
a
I was
half,
just like
2
2 or
years.
3.
Mhm.
I still remember, to this day when I have to get up and go work out, like I should really sign up and do a marathon or do something that forces you to want to get up and want to do this because just doing it isn't that exciting. And I remember working with you, and one of the things that you had talked about was like, just, sign up for doing something like that in the
Mhm,
exercise world, and it'll help you, motivate you because you have to then train to go do it. And I did that for a while and I've gotten away from it. I
mhm.
do still have a trainer, so it does still force me to at least work out a couple days
Yeah,
a week. But I
that's
remember
good.
that was one of the things that stuck with me from your call a long time ago. So
That's good.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
That's funny. I remember that too because we talked a lot about fitness, throughout coaching, but that seems to be, a real foundational part for entrepreneurs. It's a common conversation for sure.
Well, yeah, I think it's one of those things you let go because you're
Mhm.
so busy trying to work and do all these things that you forget about your own health. And really, you got to do that first and then worry about everything else. So, but yeah, I'm happy to say I've been working out with a trainer twice a week for every year since then. So
All the
it's
years.
been
That's amazing.
been awesome. So yeah, if you want to give our listeners a little bit of background on yourself, I know you sent your bio over, and it is phenomenal. I'm really excited about this today. So go ahead and share with the listeners your amazing track record.
Well, I'm gonna have to defer to you on a couple of the numbers because if you remember, I'm not a numbers person. So what I do know is I have 360 amazing partners. I think 362 as to of today, across the country. I think that spans 39, 40 states. So as we were talking at the beginning, that's just really after 25 years of being in this business. I think where I flourish is just partnerships and relationships and helping people and bringing people together and connecting, people. And I've been able to do that. In fact, this morning I was on a call with an agent of mine that's in Texas and Oklahoma, and I connected her with somebody else that I'm now partnered with in Arkansas, who also does a little bit in Oklahoma, but they have so much in common. And it was just they're going to be a blessing to each other's lives and to each other's businesses. And that's the stuff I get excited about doing. So, being in a platform where I don't have any geographical limits and I can just be myself and be the connector and coach and train as I have time and want to, or they want me to, is really a blessing. And so that's been over the last 4 years now, I guess 3.5 years. And prior to that, I was coaching amazing people like Dave and team leaders across the country. And I was in the expansion space. I've been a top producing agent in Minnesota. I now live in North Idaho. So in 25 years, a lot of things have changed. But the one thing that has remained steadfast is real estate. It's the only industry I pretty much have known. I've been in it since I was 23, which is quite interesting to think about. But finding my way and my own strengths and talents in that industry has been the most fun part. And for the latter half of it, it really has been just pouring into other people and helping them be better at their business.
So that is amazing. And one of the numbers you didn't share was that the 362 members of your organization that you brought in sold 902 million in sales so far this year, which is amazing. So congrats. And you get to help and coach them throughout the year. What is it you're seeing right now, in this industry that is probably the biggest struggle for agents and, you know, when we ended our coaching back in 2021, the market was nuts, right? The rates were still super low. Things were kind of going crazy. And I think as anyone in the business, we all looked like rock stars because everyone was selling real estate. You put a sign in the yard and be gone by Monday. And now that's changed and things have started to shift around and slow down. And you have agents in 38, 40 states. So you have an interesting perspective. I'm just in St. Louis. And so I know the St. Louis market. You are all over the country and you get to see different pockets and all that stuff. So what are you seeing from your perspective?
Yeah, that is one of the blessings is that I get to hear different things from different people. Sometimes certain markets will start to shift before the rest of the country. So there's a forewarning, so to speak. And I know we used to learn that. Like, look at what happens in Florida and Arizona, and it's probably coming your way. That's literally been something that people have shared many years in the business. And so I've been seeing things change in Florida for some time. And I've got great producers down there and great coaches that have been able to help agents navigate that. And then they share that with me, and then I get to share it with others. So that is a blessing. The market's different in all the areas, but there is, I think, one consistency, which is homes are staying on the market longer. And for those people who haven't been in the business that long, who did get to just come into this market and, put a sign in the yard and things were selling quickly, they haven't learned some of those foundational skills. And more importantly, they haven't learned, I think, that the expectation conversation up front with a seller, and then what to do when you have a home on the market for 90 days and your seller's getting antsy, and like, are you doing touch points? Are you doing market analysis every few weeks? Are you like, what are you doing to keep in communication with a client that you now have for 90 days, versus maybe it only took 2 days, that you had to talk to your seller before. So we've gone back to like really, I guess, honing these skills, which is really like being the expert, being the person that shares the knowledge with the consumer, and also not being the person that gives into what the seller wants, but rather the expert that tells them what they need to hear, which is a different shift when you come out of a market like we were in. And then we move into this market. Whether they like it or not, they do want us to be the experts, and they do want us to tell them what to do, but it's uncomfortable for a lot of us. So we have to make a decision. Are we the leader and the expert, or are we just going to go get the business and allow them to tell us what to do? That is not a good relationship in today's market. You've got to be able to guide and lead your people to the reality of the situation. I always tell people, I mean, I've been saying this for 25 years. I am not the person that makes up the market. I am the interpreter of the market. I am the messenger, but I am the person you're paying me to give you this message so you can actually make a decision. You either actually want to move today or you don't. And in this market, we can't just test waters, in my opinion, because homes will not sell. And do we really want to have a disgruntled client? Because I just believe that when we put ourselves in all of these positions, it impacts the rest of our business. Those are the kinds of things we're training on. I think that's the biggest struggle I'm seeing with people, is trying to figure out how to work with their clients in this different environment.
So how I agree. I think that when you're working with sellers, it's a lot different than the buyers, right? Going out and looking at houses is fun and light and all that kind of stuff, and we have a good time. But when it comes down to selling, especially when it doesn't move in the first weekend, the seller's like, "Why isn't my house sold?" How are you training people to get more direct, to have those tougher conversations and develop that thicker skin? Because part of me is listening to this, going, "Well, yeah, but if that's just not me." Right.
Yes.
However, it can be trained. I personally will say that wasn't me. Like early on,
Mhm.
I was the guy that was like, okay, that sounds good. I'd probably recommend maybe this. And, they were like, okay. And I did learn that it was like, the more direct you are and just, no, this is what we should do. Even when you're in the back of your mind going, I don't really know, maybe. That confidence is what I think really helps. So how are you helping your
Yeah.
agents get through that?
That's so true. I think not, I mean, some of us might be more naturally direct. And many of us in real estate, though, are more relational naturally. So that's not going to be our natural demeanor. But I think if we remember that people are hiring us to achieve a goal, and that it's our job to help them achieve it, then if we're just being okay with whatever, then we aren't really partnering them in their goal. We're partnering with them to list a property. We're not actually partnering with them to sell a house. And if that's their goal, is to sell it, then we better take that pretty seriously. So sometimes it's just reframing. Like, for me, I have a problem with wanting to appease people and be really kind, but that isn't always good for them. And I actually I've started to realize, and this is personal and professional, that the truth is what is kind. So we just have to know how to deliver it. Right. So, I mean, it doesn't mean you're rude. It doesn't mean you're without emotion. And it doesn't mean that you're not empathetic to their situation. It also doesn't mean that you just go along with what they say, because that might not be true. If they say, yeah, I want to sell my house, but I want to sell it this, and we just say, okay, let's try that. Is that really something that is true about the market? Is that really going to happen? And if it isn't, and then we need to realize that that's probably not kind, because they said they wanted to sell their house. So now what we have to say is, I know this is probably not what you want to hear. And this is my least favorite part of the job, because I just want to make sure that everybody is able to achieve all their goals. and be happy. But if you really, really want to move, then I have to be honest with you. I would rather tell you what you need to hear than what you want to hear. And then in, 6 months from now, you haven't moved yet because you've told me that's important to you. So I think it's all about like trying to figure out how you can be direct in your own personality. It's like I don't copy somebody else's personality that is more black and white and direct, and their personality is different than me. It wouldn't come off correctly. I would feel very uncomfortable. I probably wouldn't do it. And if I did do it, it would be very weird. I'd probably not close any more houses. So I have to figure out how can I be clear, truthful, bring the information and also tell them what is true, not what they want to hear. And how do I come up with my own quote unquote script? What feels natural to me because they already know me. They know my personality. So I need to be true to that. But I have to remember they're hiring me. So it's not like I'm their friend trying to give them advice. They're hiring me. And so I have an obligation to try to get to the goal if they hire me, and therefore I better be honest with myself about what that truth is, and I have to figure out how to deliver it to somebody else. I think that's true for buyers today. Yes, it's harder for sellers because of the situation with home prices and how long they're staying on the market, but I am seeing so many people with their buyers I think are also dragging them along because they're not being firm in their expectations. They're not taking the lead or they're not setting expectations. And part of it is maybe the lack of education. And part of it is, again, this lack of being able to be direct because they just want to get the client and help them and make them feel good. But we've got so many contracts falling out right now. I mean, it's so cool to think that we've almost hit 1 billion in sales, but what could have that have been? Because I have one of my partners who is in a very, very specific market, but she's had 26 transactions fall out this year. She does a high volume, but that's a lot of houses that she thought she was going to sell that she didn't. And many of them are buyers. And so we really, really have to have the tough conversations. And I think that what has to happen is we have to be very educated because to your point, if you're not confident, are you going to be coming in confident with what you tell them to do? Probably not, or it's going to be a lot harder.
So that is a phenomenal point. You made a ton of phenomenal points there. First, knowing the goal of the seller. And if I don't know what the goal of the seller is, to be able to help them along and get them to where they need to be, I can't be direct. I can't really get to the point, right? And tell them we need the price drop if I don't really, if they're just sort of fishing. The other thing there, the confidence, right? And understanding the market. I agree. I think when you're working on the buy side or whatever it is, if you're not setting proper expectations, is it because I don't really know the market and I'm sort of just, floating along and trying to like, well, we'll see what happens. So if that's the case, I'm newer in the business, right? There's new agents that jump into this all the time. How do I create that confidence? What should I be doing so then I can set the right expectations, right? I need to get paid. I'm going to get deals done. But at the same time, like I haven't done one yet, or I've only done two. So I'm not an expert, right? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple things that could be helpful. I mean, the one thing that I tell everybody is you have to get into your MLS. Like a lot of MLS have hot sheets that get sent to them. You can sign up for it or you can log into your MLS and see like what has happened in the last 24 hours. Like that has to be on the calendar every day. Some people will be like, "Oh yeah, I look at the hot sheet like on Fridays or I look at them once in a while." One thing that my husband and I have noticed, and it really comes from Chris because he's very analytical and he's a very strong agent because he uses numbers, because he's very confident in what's happening in the market, whether he works with a buyer or seller. That's not naturally my place that I gravitate towards numbers, but I've seen how important it is because what happens is if you look at that every single day, whether you're selling houses or not, you will start to decipher patterns. You will start to notice things because you're just actually seeing in real time every single day what is selling, what is expiring, what is back on the market. You'll see price points start to, oh, it seems like things in this price point are falling apart like crazy. It seems like things in this price point, are moving faster, or this neighborhood, or it's very, very interesting the patterns then you can start to see. And, people think, oh, well, you can only really start to see those patterns if you sell a lot of real estate, but that's not actually true. You can see what other people are selling, but you have to do it consistently. And I actually think you should have to do it every single day because I don't think you can form those patterns in your mind if you don't. Um, So that's a huge one. The second one is we do have a lender who services many different states come on and just talk about what is happening literally every week in lending, because they're also seeing just a lot of interesting things on the back end for buyers and sellers alike that are just different because we're just running into a lot of challenges. The other thing I think is really, like, you can actually go for most of, well, not everybody, but for many of the MLSs that have a system like showing time, for an example, you can actually go in as if you're going to schedule a showing and be able to see if there are a lot of showings scheduled for any given property. There's all these little hacks. So let's say, for an example, you're going to go in a listing presentation for a property in a specific price range or neighborhood or area. You can actually go look at what is on the market today, because sometimes things haven't sold recently in the area that you are looking to list a property. And, if we go back 90 days, it could be a different price today. And so it's sometimes difficult, right? And we can't see what things have sold for in pendings. We don't know these things. And so what we have found is if we can go actually look at the actives and see, like, is there activity on these? Like, are they even getting showings? It is a little bit of an indication, like, it's been on the market for 2 weeks. I could go schedule a showing anytime or the next week because there's hardly any set. Like, I can bring this data to a client and just say, like, this is what I'm observing. The other thing is building really good relationships with agents in your area, because if you did have one that recently sold or closed and you wanted to just get a little bit more information about the inspection or the appraisal or things like that, my husband does that all the time. And he's willing to answer those questions for people. He is not afraid to call people and ask. And when you go into an appointment and you can say, I called 3 agents that had listings in this area, and this is what I learned, and I went into showing time, and here's your competition, and I don't think they're getting many showings, and they're already been on the market for this long, and I talked to my lender in this particular price range, this is some of the challenges buyers are having. Like, you are completely a different expert than if you just walk in with a CMA.
That's phenomenal. So I don't necessarily need to have sold tons of houses to have all that data. I got to be honest. I wrote down the showing time hack. I've not thought of that before. I am curious on that. If I go and look at that active listing, can I go back days to see showings, or is
So
it
there's
only on the
some
day I'm trying to show it?
reporting. Yeah, I'm not as familiar. I just heard that from my husband. There's some reporting that he is able to see. So I think Showing Time has some reports that you can even pull potentially. And so it might kind of give you like average showings and different price points and things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great little hack. Okay. So then now it's really it's studying the market, right? And it's understanding the market and knowing what I'm getting into. So then I can have the confidence to speak intelligently to my buyers, to my sellers, and be then set the proper expectations. And I agree. I think that the lack of expectation setting that we experience, regardless of the market. I mean, I think even in the crazy market, it doesn't matter. I think we come across that as agents quite a bit. And you can tell when, who's in charge when you're doing a deal sometimes. Is it the other agent or is it their client? Just based on how it's going. And when the agents are in control and are working together, the transaction
Amazing.
goes much better, and there's a lot less emotion, and the chances of it getting to the finish line are much greater in those cases. So that's some great advice on that. So I'm curious also in your world, what about people that are looking to hire? Some of the audience that we are typically targeting on our podcast are people who are looking to grow teams, have smaller teams. What are you seeing in that space? What are the challenges you're seeing with people who are building teams right now?
Yeah, so I love the team question because, as you know, I mean, the reason we were coaching together is because I'd been spending so much time in the team building model for, gosh, since 2012. I've been helping people, coaching people through building teams, and I've seen so many different variations of teams and things that have changed over time. My husband had a really successful couple teams actually, but one that we have kind of started to change a little bit. And what I'm seeing is,
Real quick, I just want to say you did share with us before your husband had a team and actually was able to sell his team,
yes.
which I think is awesome. And I'm only bringing that up because it's almost unheard of in this business. I personally feel like it's a dream of mine to be able to build it and have something long term that if you want to be able to sell it, you can. But in our industry, at least around here, most agents just retire or just end, just stop, just move, whatever it is, and that's it. It's just over. So I think it's really cool that you guys built a team and then were actually able to sell off that team, and it says a lot about what you guys built. So
Yeah,
back to
thank
you
you.
being
Well, and it was amazing because I mean, really, it was sold to people that were in partnership with us on the team, and we just saw them as emerging, leaders and kind of planted that seed. We didn't know we'd be able to make that transition as quickly as we did, but we really were able to build more nationally, which allowed us to have that financial wherewithal to be able to then let go of that income and pass it on to some others. Now, there's still some income that comes from that team because of the model we're in, but it's totally different. But it was a proud moment. It was certainly something we like to help other people do. I shared with you, and people that don't know me and don't follow me on social media don't know, but we had a big life-changing event happen to us at the beginning of the year with our youngest son. And so for the first 6 months of the year, we really didn't work very much. And had he still been running that team, that would have been a really, really challenging situation because you just don't have the time freedom because people are depending on you. So for us, it was like, I just feel like things happen for a reason. And so the fact that we were able and he was able to sell that sooner than we thought and then be prepared for a time such as this, I mean, it was a huge blessing, but it's really sparked a motivation for Chris and I to help our people figure out a path of exit. And if it's not even a path of exit, it's a path so that if something happened, like you wouldn't have to make a choice because we didn't have to make a choice to like shut down a team or shut down our business or something like that. We were really put in a position, we believe it was, something that God has blessed us with, but we were put in a position that we could go through that and it didn't like completely topple over our life, in all the other ways because it was already pretty, pretty life altering in all the other ways. So I say
For
all that
sure,
to
and I
say
think
that's
what I'm hearing
yeah,
you say is it ultimately allowed you to the freedom and the time you needed, whereas as a traditional agent, I think, maybe they do just stop because they have to, but essentially stopping and selling and then coming back 6 months, 9 months, you're
restarting
basically
or
back at 0,
yeah,
you know, regardless of what your experience is and everything, but we all know, I mean, a month off in this business can feel like 3 months from trying
yes,
to ramp back up, so,
yes.
yeah, that's amazing, so.
And it has made us passionate about how can we help other people do it. They're not always going to do it the way we do, and that's okay. I think there's a variety of ways people can do it. But what I'm seeing out there for agents who are feeling this, like I do want to have some bandwidth. If something did happen, I do want to feel like my business isn't going to just stop. I do need to have something. And that's the whole reason people started teams in the first place. I think the challenge with it is that that doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting time back. They're just doing other things with the time that they had. So they're maybe not as transactional anymore, but they're still having to take that time that they used to sell houses and pour into other people so that they can sell houses. So it's still transactional to some degree. It still requires a lot of effort and time. And at some point, what if you couldn't put the effort and time in? Do you have anything that you could lean on? And I think it's important for entrepreneurs to consider at the very best. So, there's a whole bunch of ways that people are building teams from the traditional team that I started building many years ago to more of a shared resources group that is a lower fee, lower split. Let's just basically crowdfund and put a little bit of money from every transaction into a pool that pays for resources that we could all take advantage of. So we don't have to carry a heavy burden ourselves individually or have a heavy risk. So I'm doing that with my group in Minnesota as an example. I've got people who are just deciding that they'd really like to work together, and therefore they're going to share leads and cover each other on vacations. And I mean, it's as simple as that, but they trust each other, they like each other. It's more fun than working on their own. The bottom line, though, is not all of those are going to create like necessarily a residual income. What it can do, though, is it can help you to save time and money, which hopefully means that you do have more flexibility. You have people around you that you could lean on if something did happen where you had to take time off and you didn't absolutely lose 100% of your income. And you don't have a bunch of expenses that are going to drown you while you're, taking that time off. And or it's something that you could slowly start to pass business onto. So when you do decide you no longer want to sell anymore, you might have intertwined your database and your sphere with somebody else that does have some more time that they want to spend. And therefore, that could be some residual. Obviously, there are companies out there that, help you build an organization. That's what I'm doing. That has become residual. There's a lot of people that are just trying to figure out how to create time and space in their finances to go and do other business entities, other investments. And I think that's the thing that I like to focus on. It doesn't really matter how you're getting yourself more money and time, but if you can get yourself more money and time, you can go do something else with it. And that diversification, I think, is key. And so I'm seeing a movement across the country of people starting different business ventures alongside real estate. One of them actually is in the office space sector, the co-working space. Maybe it's because I did it. And so then a lot of people around me are
You
like, I
can. No,
want to do that.
you're co-founder of one, right?
Yes. So my husband and I have a business partner in that, actually one of our real estate business partners. And that's been amazing. I mean, it's gotten us real estate business. It's gotten us into our community more. It's helped us to build our organization within our company more because we have office space and we can do events. It's like 5 different ways that we've benefited from having another business entity that can be synergistic with what we do.
So side note here, so you bought a building, you lease it out to other entrepreneurs, not just realtors, or anything, not, it's not exclusive to that. It's to anybody who wants to use it. And then you guys earn income from leasing it and using it. Then you can use it yourself or do events there, but it's sort of a flex space for you. But it's an income generating tool for you as well.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is that our agents are coming into it using the space because we are in a cloud-based brokerage that does not have one. So that was a consideration for our own self because we wanted an office space, but for our partners because we felt like that would be important. But what we didn't really realize, I mean, we had the idea, but we didn't really realize the power in that, not only from a collaboration and a growth perspective, but we have people who want to be around real estate agents who are coming to be in that space simply because they're almost using it like a networking group, only they get office space too. And they can use those shared spaces to train each other. They are doing seminars, they're doing events. And then it has been a huge opportunity for us and our agents to get more referrals and for those other business owners to get more referrals. So now we've got like 8, 10 different, entrepreneurs around the real estate world that are in this office that we can walk down the hall to and be like, we need your help. We've got a structural engineer. We've got, an interior designer that does a ton of stuff with the luxury market. We've got transaction coordinators. We've got lenders, we've got financial advisors, but they're also coming together and helping each other, giving referrals, training each other. We've got like a built-in like vendor system. And, what's interesting is that when you are an entrepreneur, whether you own an insurance, agency or you're a financial advisor or you own your own structural engineering business, you don't typically have an office space. I mean, you could go get one, but you don't really need a full office. It's very hard to find office space around here unless you need a lot of space. It's very expensive. I mean, you'll go get a lobby and an office space for $1,000, $1,500 a month, and you're one guy sitting in that office. It makes no sense. But we can offer, a $399 office or a co-working membership for $125, and you can meet your client there. And they're like, why would we not do this? But I want to bring
They're
up the
just
whole.
paying a membership fee and then they use it as they want. So it's not even like they have a set office. They just have a space they know they can go to. It's even cooler. Now you've got like a subscription model that you're generating income on and you can have even more people. That's just awesome.
So I
Okay.
want to bring this back to one thing. When you were saying what's up with teams, think about that because that has been this whole idea of like, I started watching the coaching industry change a lot after you and I were coaching, and I kind of made some of my changes. Most of the big coaching companies were going to like a lower subscription model coaching because what they were identifying is people wanted access to things, but they didn't want to pay a lot, and ultimately, if you do have a lot of one-on-one clients, you can only have so many. This is just like being a real estate agent. You only have so much time in a day to service so many clients, so your income is limited. I mean, if that's your goal is income, and of course, there's other goals, there's impact and things like that. I loved one-on-one coaching, but you can't necessarily scale that. So when you can start taking less money from more people, it creates a leverage and it creates a larger income opportunity with less risk. Because if I lost 5 people in a subscription model, it isn't going to change my financials dramatically. But if I lost 5 one-on-one coaching clients, that would be a very large amount of my income. Same thing on a team. If I have a small team, that's good. The risk is that you have a small team, and if 1 or 2 leave, it's a big part of your business. If you have a lot of people and diversification in different markets like we do, we are getting paid from 300 transactions of 360 people. Now it's not the same as we were when we were having a team and it was a high split, but it's actually less risky and it's paying us more money with um the need for
dollar per
less
hour,
resources. Yeah, dollar
right?
per
And
hour.
when you look at it from that perspective, on what you're really doing especially on those transactions, you're not a part of them. Whereas like a team like mine, and we're all right here working together, meeting together, supporting each other. Yeah, it is different.
It's just an
Um,
interesting model. So when we started thinking about what we were doing on the real estate, and it's not a team, but it's certainly a collaborative group. When we were thinking about this model, and sharing some resources and lower expenses and more people being able to tap in. And I personally am a firm believer that more people can offer more to each other. Like the more the better. If it's well organized, I mean, if nobody talks to each other, it doesn't matter. But I mean, if you have more people that you could refer business to, if you had more people you could learn from, if you had more people you could tap into for ideas, I mean, theoretically, more is better. And for us, we can know that there isn't a big risk because we have more. And it's the same thing with our co-working space. If it was all private offices yielding us a lot of money on the private offices, and we started losing people in the private offices, we start going under pretty quickly. But most people don't really think twice about $124 a month. If they came in once a month, it's worth it for them. They use the mail, they make a few copies, and they meet a client there once a month. They're like, I couldn't do that for $124 anywhere. So I'm not going to cancel. And that's where a lot of those coaching companies were going down that path. And now I'm seeing, really a lot of teams going down that path, sharing resources, coming together with lower fees to their agents, having more of them, which can equate to maybe a different or better culture. But I mean, obviously has to be done in the right way. But I just think conceptually, that's what I'm seeing more people want to do. I'm also seeing more people want to diversify. So how can I build my real estate business, my real estate team, my real estate collaborative network, whatever this is, but what else could I do that would be alongside it that could benefit that team and my real estate business, but also brings me some more income? And it's just this creativity and this entrepreneurship that I've been seeing more and more come out, even in the last few years. I think today, even probably more commonly, because when markets shift, we start realizing we don't really want to have all of our eggs in one basket if we can help it.
Yeah, now it's exactly what I was thinking when you were saying that is I think it becomes more prominent when things slow down, right? I got into the real estate business in 2007, and I mean I was brand new, so I didn't know anything. But watching all these realtors get out of the industry because the market was blowing up because of foreclosures and short sales and all the things, right out of the gate was like, okay, well I know I need to create another business in order to make this work because apparently just selling real estate doesn't work because obviously we're getting out. And so we started back into rehabbing, and having that with the real estate sales was on purpose to have two different, just what you're talking about. And it was born out of a time that the market was not great. And we just kind of kept building them both at the same time. And now we've got that. And it makes a ton of sense. Another thing I thought was great and I could totally relate to is, yes, it's nice when you have a small team. And a lot of us will have that admin and we make our first bring in our first buyer's agent. And well, we only want the one. I don't want to have a big team. I don't have a lot of people. The one challenge that I don't think people realize until it happens is when that buyer's agent leaves, you are now the buyer's agent again. And then after a year, 2 years, 5 years, however long it is, when it's you and that buyer's agent, you guys were killing it. It was awesome. And they leave. You're like, oh, wait, now this is why I need it too, so I've got a backup plan here.
That's right.
Otherwise you get to inherit all that over again. And honestly, after a certain amount of time, it's hard. Like
Yes.
you've built a business doing more of listings or more rehabs or something else in addition to this. So then all of a sudden to take it back, you don't have the ability to do it. And now you have all these buyers that are looking for you to help them, and it puts you in a weird spot. So adding in more people is important. Even if you don't want it to be a large team, you need to at least have some
Yeah, some
backup
backup
plan
plans.
when they
Yeah.
happen.
And
Or,
if you want a
you
small
have a
team,
life altering event that happens and you have to step out,
yeah,
you have more people to help
that's right.
you in that case.
That's
So,
right.
sorry.
Yeah, whatever you're building, I think the people you surround yourself with, right? Definitely. And make sure there's enough of them. So if something changes in one of their lives too, and they couldn't help you, like we all could have events happen. It might not be that they leave you, it could just be that something happens in their life and they can no longer work right now. So I think, yes, size is I mean, there's many different perspectives. There's downfalls to what we're doing too, and there's obviously pros and cons to having a small team. But I do think what you said is really important. Who you surround yourself with matters. How you can help each other grow matters, and how you can have some of that leverage. And I think it's just important as we're all business planning and thinking towards the end of the year, like what would we do if we couldn't work? Like for 90 days. I think it's just an interesting like question to ask ourselves in business planning and life planning too. Like, do we have some financial backup? Do we have some other streams of income? Could we make that a plan if we don't? Do we have the right people around us that we would really be able to collaborate with and work with, that we wouldn't lose all of our income, that would help us out? Have we had that conversation with those people? And are we willing to also do the same for them if, something happens there? And so it's like really just thinking about that, because like I would theoretically coach to that a lot, and I was very aware that it could happen. None of us think it's actually going to happen to us. Um, and I was the same person, like, oh my gosh, never thought that this would happen. Obviously, blessed that it happened when it did, and we were set up for some of that. Um, but now it's like, how do we dig a little bit deeper into the business and life planning with our clients and our friends and our business partners to make sure that they've got at least some consideration towards this? And it's not
What are
to
you
scare people,
doing?
but.
What are agents doing for that question? How are you helping them? Because that's a great question. So what would you do
Mhm.
if you couldn't work for 90 days? So that means I can't sell houses. So I don't have any income coming in if I'm not selling houses. So this is great. So what, help me through that. Walk me
So,
through
I
that.
mean, the biggest thing is like, okay, so if you're sick and you can't work at all, like that's the worst case scenario, because you can't even get on the phone with your clients and make referrals and, things of that nature. I think it's really good to have a plan. Like, do I have a good database? Do I have leads coming in? Is there somebody else in my world or in my business that would take this over? Do I have an agreement or, something in place? Like, if something happened, you can run with these and you would pay me a 25 or 30% referral fee. Like, I think it's worth it to have A, the conversation, and B, to have something in writing just in case, and do the same thing for them and honor it and be in business with people that have integrity that you believe would do that for you. I do think that looking at your overall passive income though is critical. And I don't care what it comes from. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. But if you kind of keep putting it off and say, oh, I'll get to that next year, I'll get to that next year, I do think it's important to start to realize that, there is time of the essence in some of these things. None of us are getting younger and things could always happen. I have a partner in Minnesota who I was on the phone with today because she has incrementally grown her business since she partnered with us 3.5 years ago. And she bought her first investment property this year. And she's been talking about it for about 3 years, but she had to get through the mindset challenges she had with it, some of the scarcity things. She is a single woman, so like she doesn't have any other person to back her up if these things don't work. But even today, after she's bought it, she still gets a little bit of anxiety about, oh my gosh, I could have that money in my savings account instead of this, this property. But the point being is like, she doesn't have anything to fall back on if something were to happen to her. So we're really strategically getting her to make some moves that she maybe has been putting off, or I can do that later, that we need to do this kind of stuff. So I do think investing in real estate is good, although not everything is going to be a big cash flowing asset. If you own some things, depending upon the market, theoretically you have access to cash, right? You could take some money out in a home equity line of credit and things like that. And if you have a few properties, typically speaking, you can leverage those properties for some short-term income if you needed to. And I had somebody who had to do that. I think that investing in some sort of uh, you know, uh, company that you might be able to make other income streams, I personally think it's a big deal. I feel like if you keep more of your own money, don't spend it, pretend like you still only keep a certain amount of it. And then what are we going to do with this to make business work for us? For us, we had income coming in whether we showed up or not, and we had been building that for 4 years. We also had transactions still coming in And we were able to trust people to help us do those transactions. Now, we still paid them to do it. We only got a percentage of those transactions, but we didn't have to let any transactions go. Despite the fact that we were literally hinging on a very serious situation, we had people that we could tee up very quickly with not a lot of effort, that we completely trusted, that were experienced, that was like, please help this client. And they were able to close them. So I want to hear me say too, it's like, yes, it can be great if you have a bunch of new agents around you, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can go close the deals that you need them to close if you're like in the hospital. You know what I mean? Like, who are
Yeah.
those people around you that are as experienced as you or are very experienced who can just literally like take something off your plate without much explanation or much help and like go run with this, that's going to bring you a paycheck when you no longer have paychecks? And I think that could be a real estate team. I think that could just be partners in the business. I think that that could be a network. I think it could be a collaborative group. I think it could be anything. But these are the small details that people don't think of, and then they're scrambling in the moment. I
One of
sent a
the things
referral to
I
so
had
and so
in
and they didn't close it. Okay, if they don't close it, nobody makes any money here. So, you know, just because you have a team doesn't mean you can always leverage 100% to it, I guess is my point.
Totally. I think everyone has a role on that team. It's not like you're just not doing anything. I was going to say one of the things that I had in place personally for a long time was disability insurance that I paid a
Yes.
flat amount every year for, and it covered me a guaranteed amount. If something were to
Yes.
happen to me that I could no longer sell,
Mhm.
then I was guaranteed essentially, a small salary that I would still bring in,
Yep.
and I paid that every year. It was like I said, it was a flat fee up until this year, and I've got other ways that I generate income, even without factoring in that salary, so I felt okay enough at this point, like, okay, if I got in that situation like
You
you're
have certain
describing,
amount. Yeah.
would I still have money coming in? And the answer is yes, so I stopped making those payments on that to have that as a backup, but I'm only sharing that because that is something that I
Good.
don't feel like I hear many agents really
Mm-mm.
think about, and, it's, a few thousand bucks can
Yes.
get you a guaranteed 50,000, 60,000 a year. Yeah, maybe that's not a ton of money, but it's better than
It
0
makes you
income.
not go bankrupt. Yeah, literally
Yeah.
for a lot of people. Mhm.
And it can be one commission check or something that you pay to put towards that, but that is something there, and the other thing that I think was interesting you made a comment on there was I could be a solo agent. I don't have to have a team. I just need to have a good person that I trust that like, hey, if something happens, let's work out a deal. If something happens to me, I need you to jump in and take over my business or vice versa. And we just have an understanding and you have something in place to
Right.
make that happen. I'm sitting here thinking, man, how many people have that backup plan? Like team or no team, like, it doesn't matter. Like
No.
I don't know that I've ever had that conversation with
No,
anybody.
and I
So
mean, I would have never really thought about that myself. I mean, we talk to agents about that, like on their vacations, and well, this is easy because you're planning it. But
you're
having
planning it.
gone,
That's right.
yeah, that's the difference. When you are in in a serious event, whether it's your own health or a family member or something tragic happens, your mind is not in the right, it's not in the same spot. So, are you going to go and like search all the people and like create an agreement and figure out here's how you get my CRM and this is what I need? And you're not. Like, I didn't open a computer or a phone because I didn't have a capacity to for probably about 90 days. And so, if Chris and I didn't just have people that we already kind of worked with, and I think that's key, somehow already building that relationship, knowing about each other's businesses. We had already worked on some, like Chris had done some co listings with a few of them. Like, we know how they work, they know how we work. We have a good respect. We helped each other in the business. We really were able to just go, we need you to do this. And there was not much conversation. And it was a life saving thing because we didn't actually go down in our income that much in real estate sales, which is crazy to think, despite the fact that we really didn't show up for that, or Chris didn't show up for that for, the first at least 4 months. So I think that that is just a good question to ask yourself. Like, what if you didn't work from January to April in the new year? Would you be able to maintain an income? And if you say no, why is that? Is it just because you're so solo and flying on your own that nobody could really jump in and help you, or you wouldn't even know where to begin? And that leads me to the question that you asked me earlier, which is like trying to hire your first admin, or getting a staff member, or even a virtual assistant. Somebody who works in your business could be a great resource to help somebody else who now has to come in and jump into your business because they already have all the systems and the lay of the land, right? So not only does an admin help you to have a better quality of life if you do it correctly as a top producing agent or a team leader, but I think that, it's kind of part of that plan. Like, do you have that conversation with your admin? Like, if anything happens and I can't sell, I'm going to bring in one of these couple agents and I need you to help them because they need to help my clients and we need to keep business going. I've had people who have admin who really do not sell any real estate, but they are licensed and they're very, very involved with the business, that they've had that conversation with them. Like, would you just go sell the houses? Would you, and you're going to like, there's a lot of things you could do. I think the point that I want to just make an impact to people is I just don't think as entrepreneurs we think that far of ahead. We're like transaction to transaction, yes, year to year on goals, but it's like, how many houses can I sell this year? What can I do this year? And the problem is, if that I was taken out, this whole business plan is null and void, and that's a problem for our families.
Yeah, I remember when I was a team leader, and this was like 2017 timeline, and I was talking to an agent about joining our market center, and she was older. She'd been in the business for a long time, and she had just made a comment like, "Well, if I don't sell a house, I can't make my mortgage payment." And I was sitting there thinking, wow, you've been doing this for 30 years. And, no judgment. This is just my own personal feelings in that, like, man, I don't want to be in that situation where I'm in this for this long and I'm still having to sell in order to
Yeah.
just fund
Yeah.
my day to day life. And so I think in that moment, personally, it was like, okay, I really need to make sure that I'm setting things up. So at some point, I can decide, like, I don't ever have to sell a house again if I don't want to,
Yeah.
and I want to get to that spot because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm 70, 80 years old and I'm still having
Have
to
to.
sell if I don't want to, right?
Right.
Like that's the key. It's like if I still want to, then great, go do it. But if it's like, no, if I don't, I can't make my car payment, my mortgage payment, or
Too much
whatever it is,
stress. Yeah.
that's I don't want to be in that place, right?
No.
So what you're sharing there, I think is great is, think that far ahead. So what can you create? What do you put in place so that way you're not, and then you get to choose. Because what's funny is we get into the business for the freedom, right? And the
The last thing we
flexibility,
have.
but then you're like
Yeah.
stuck in it, based on that scenario. And I can't get out of it because I need it in order to fund everything. So
Well, and team
it's a
leaders are
great
not
point.
immune to this. To your point, we've both been team leaders and we've coached a lot of people. And whether they've been in the business for 30 years or 3 years, whether they're a solo agent or a team leader, I think we find a lot of people are in that mode where I have to sell the next house to do the next thing, to pay the next bill, whether it's the bills for the business or personal bills. And what it is I think it's a lack of just either awareness. Like, you had an awareness when you had that conversation. That person's never had this awareness, right? Like, wait, why am I living this way? Um, Unfortunately, people are still just teaching how to sell every transaction forever for the rest of our lives. They're not really making people aware of the things that they need to be aware of as a business owner. And, look, I've been talking about this for 25 years. I don't know if it's ever going to completely change, but as real estate entrepreneurs, I hope that we just keep moving towards feeling like and being and acting like entrepreneurs and small business owners versus salespeople. That's the fundamental difference. I'm a salesperson selling houses that has to pay their
Yes.
bills, or I am an actual business owner entrepreneur that wants to build a business and a legacy for my family. And I want to eventually be able to retire or have something to show for it. Those are very two different mentalities. And I venture to guess the woman that you talked with, because she'd been in the business for a long time, nobody had this conversation with her. And so it's like, if you're not even thinking about it, planning for it, or aware of it, you're just going to keep going through the motions.
You know what the problem is? HGTV doesn't tell you about being a business owner. They only show you how to show houses, and you show 3 and they buy 1, and how great it is and how
And how
fun
much
it is.
money you make. Yeah.
And all that, and I'm sort of joking, but sort of serious in that,
Yeah.
like, you're right, nobody is talking like, we promote real estate as a very sales transaction, do the deal, do the deal, do the deal all the time, but no one, because I think that is the problem. No one is being talking about real estate as you're a business owner when you get into
Yes.
this. You're coming in as just a salesperson, learn how to sell, and then eventually you may go, maybe I am a business owner, but nobody sees it that way when they come in, and I think it's because of what you said, no one is talking about it in
Hmm.
that way. Even in the training and the courses and any of that stuff, there is nothing in there about it, but you truly are. Whether you're solo or on a team or not, doesn't matter. You are a business owner. And when you're working with those clients, you're running a business as much as you think you are selling, but it is your business. It is your brand on some level
And it
and how
should be
you,
your long-term plan, not just right now. I think we need to get out of the right right now I need to get this listing. Right now I need to sell this house. Right now I need to pay this bill. And I mean, I say all of this because I've lived it. I mean, my first
Yeah.
12 years in the business, that's exactly how I was. I was a top producing agent that barely had anything to show for it. So I know how that feels, and it's hard to get off that hamster wheel. It's hard to like find the time, the space, the thought process, the planning, and the financials to do it. But I really, really think it's worth it. And the first place you start is just at least being aware and exploring and asking yourself great questions. I've been saying for 12 years in coaching, the quality of the questions you ask yourself equate to the quality of your life or your business. And I just think we're not asking ourselves those questions. What happens if I can't show up to work next year? What happens if I'm out for 90 days? What happens if whatever, A, B, C, D, and just start to become creative around options, ideas, other business opportunities. And if you're a team leader, whether it's a small or big team, just continuing to press, I think, this upon your people, because even if they're on a team, they should still be thinking like a business owner.
Agreed. Agreed. Because I mean, personally, I have a team and I still want people to figure out how to be able to build a business and sell and do things, but also go on vacation. Also, be able to check out for a while and still earn an income and not feel like I have to grind all the time. And unless I'm doing that, I'm not making any money. So I agree. Just because you're on a team doesn't mean you're not the business owner as well. You just got to think about it differently. Well, this has been amazing as I figured it would. This is why I had you as a coach for so long, because I could sit here and ask you questions for hours. Last question I like to ask to wrap up is, what's the funniest thing, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you in real estate? You've been doing it for 25 years. Maybe it was a good recruiting story. Maybe it's something from an old showing. I don't know. What do you got for us?
That's so funny. Well, I don't even know. I probably have too many stories, and that's why I can't find one. Except for when you said that, the thing that popped in my head, because it just is always something I laugh about is. You can almost, if you're in real estate, you can try to get away from real estate as much as you want, but you're always going to find it. So I met my husband in real estate when I said I was never going to I was never going to marry somebody in real estate again. Of course I did. I met another realtor and I married him, although it's an amazing partnership and certainly one orchestrated by God. But I laugh because, what can you not do at a real estate convention? I met my spouse there. Even when I was adamant that I was not going to marry somebody that was in real estate, of course I did. So it's
It
not
was meant
funny,
to
but
be.
it is, people say my spouse doesn't understand. I'm like, you know what? You either have to be okay with your spouse not understanding the crazy life of being a realtor, or you have to marry a realtor.
I was gonna say, or you just marry one like you did, and now they
And
get
then
it
they get
because they
it.
are one. So yeah, you don't have to train them on it. That
That's
is
right.
very real. I tell people that when they're looking at getting into real estate, like,
Mhm.
are you married? Yes. Cool. Does your spouse know what you're doing? Yeah.
Do
Why?
they
Okay.
really?
Well, you really need to like sit down, and I'm happy to meet with them as well, because I don't
Yep.
think they really know what you're about to do,
Yes.
and you can tell when people are on a team and when they're struggling early on, and what the things that they're saying, you're like, that's not you, that's your spouse talking to you. And you're telling me that right now, and you can pick up on it. So
So
this
true.
the support at home is key. So just marry into it. I see.
Just you
That's a
might
good
as
call.
well. It's the easiest. It's the easiest way.
Well, this has been wonderful. For anyone that would love to connect with you, has referrals for you in Northern Idaho, how do they find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can just search my name on any platform in social media. Otherwise, you can go to my website, which is just levelupwithcari.com.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cari,
It was
thank
so great
you.
reconnecting with you.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for following, and stay tuned for another great episode. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Realty Resilience. Be sure to join our free Realty Resilience Facebook group, where real estate professionals connect, share strategies, and access resources. You can also follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insights. And remember, we release new episodes every 2 weeks. See you next time.